Ambassador Kim Hana walked through the long corridors of the Galactic Council station. Her black boots made soft sounds on the smooth crystal floor. Through the huge windows, she could see her ship floating in space. The UES Endeavour looked small and rough next to all the alien ships around it. The other ships were beautiful in strange ways. Some looked like they were made of living metal that moved like water. Others seemed to be grown instead of built, with smooth curves that flowed like plants. The alien vessels glowed with soft lights and moved without making any sound or flame. Hana's ship looked different. It was gray and boxy with sharp edges. Thick metal plates covered the outside. Big engines stuck out from the back, and she knew they would shoot bright flames when the ship moved. To human eyes, it looked strong and reliable. To the aliens waiting for her, it probably looked like a piece of junk. She reached the main council room and stopped at the huge doors. They were twice as tall as any human and covered with patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. The doors opened without sound and she walked inside. The room was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above her head. Hundreds of alien beings sat in chairs that floated in the air at different heights. Some of the aliens were so strange that Hana had trouble understanding what she was looking at. The Zalathi looked like walking crystals. They were tall and thin, and light passed through their bodies in strange ways. When they talked, their bodies changed color, and their voices sounded like breaking glass. The Chronari were half machine and half living creature. Metal parts were mixed with flesh in ways that made Hana feel sick to look at. Wires ran under their skin, and their eyes glowed with computer light. The Vorthak looked the most normal to human eyes, but they were still frightening. They were big lizard-like creatures with thick scales and sharp teeth. Their scales had tiny machines embedded in them that blinked with small lights. As Hana walked to the center of the room, she heard sounds that her translator turned into laughter. Not friendly laughter, but the kind that made fun of someone. Zalathi near the front began to speak. Its crystal body flashed with colors as the translator made its voice into words Hana could understand. Look at their ship's engines. They still burn fuel to make fire for moving. How do they even reach space with such old methods? More laughter filled the room. A Chronari with 3 arms pointed at a big screen that appeared in the air. The screen showed pictures of the UES Endeavour with details about how it worked. Their hull is so thin, the Chronari said in a voice that was half machine and half organic. Our emergency escape pods have better protection. What do they use to stop weapons? Good wishes and hope? The screen showed more information about human technology. Nuclear reactors that the aliens had stopped using thousands of years ago. Weapons that shot solid metal pieces instead of energy beams. Shields that were just magnetic fields instead of the space-bending technology the aliens used. Hana stood in the center of the room and waited for the laughter to stop. She had practiced this moment many times, but hearing hundreds of advanced beings making fun of everything humans had built still hurt. The largest Vorthak in the room stood up on his floating chair. His name was Commander Vextar, and his scales were covered with so much technology that he looked more machine than animal. Little human, he said, and his voice was like rocks grinding together. We have seen your ship and your technology. Tell us, how did your species manage to reach space? At all? Did you use magic? The room exploded with more laughter. Some aliens made sounds that the translator could not turn into words. Others flashed lights or changed colors in ways that clearly meant they thought humans were funny. Hana took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was clear and strong, even though her heart was beating fast. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, she said, humanity comes before you seeking peaceful membership in the galactic community. We know our technology appears simple compared to yours. We know our ships look rough and basic, but we offer something that might be valuable to all of you. What could you possibly offer us? Asked a Zalathi, whose crystal body was turning colors that the translator said meant disbelief. We offer a different way of thinking, Hana said. Humans have learned to solve problems with limited resources. We have learned to be creative when we cannot be powerful. We have learned to work together when we cannot work alone. The room was quieter now, but Hana could still feel the disrespect in the air. The aliens were listening, but only because they were curious about what the primitive humans would say next. We also offer determination, she continued. When humans decide to do something, we do not stop until it is finished. We may be slow and our methods may seem old, but we get results. Commander Vextar made a sound that was probably laughter. Determination? Little human determination means nothing when your enemies have weapons that can destroy stars. Your cute metal ships would not last 1 minute against real military technology. Hana smiled, and for just a moment, there was something in her eyes that might have worried the aliens if they had been paying closer attention. You may be right, Commander, she said quietly. I suppose we will find out. 3 months after the terrible meeting at the Galactic Council, Commander Park Jin-ho stood on the bridge of his ship and watched another human world die. The screen showed the planet Kepler 442b below them. What used to be cities with millions of people were now just glowing craters in the ground. A single Vorthak destroyer had done all this damage in less than an hour. Sir, said Lieutenant Cho Minho from his station. His voice was angry and sad. That makes 7 colonies they have, destroyed this month. They are not even asking people to give up anymore. They just attack and kill everyone. Jinho closed his eyes for a moment. 7 human worlds. Billions of people, all dead because the galaxy thought humans were too weak to matter. After the council meeting, things had gotten worse very quickly. The Vorthak Empire had decided that humans were a problem that needed to be solved. They called it cleaning up pests in their official reports. Other alien species watched and did nothing. Some even made bets on how long humanity would survive. The Vorthak war fleets moved through human space like they owned it. Their ships were fast and deadly. Their energy weapons could burn through anything humans had built. Their shields could stop any human weapon. When they found a human colony, they destroyed it completely and moved on to the next one. Now they were coming for the mining station at Epsilon Eridani. 300,000 people worked there, digging rare metals from the asteroids. Most of them were families, miners, engineers, teachers, doctors, normal people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. Jinho's fleet was supposed to protect them. 8 human ships against 40 Vorthak warships. The math was simple and terrible. All ships, this is Commander Park, he said into his communication device. I know what the numbers look like. I know what happened to the last 3 fleets that tried to fight them. But there are 300,000 people on that station, and they are counting on us. Through his ship's windows, he could see the other human vessels. They looked small and old compared to what was coming. The UES Defender, his own ship, was the biggest one, and it was still tiny next to a single Vorthak cruiser. Sir, called his weapons officer. Enemy fleet is coming out of hyperspace, 40 ships just like the report said. The Vorthak ships appeared in flashes of light. They were beautiful in a scary way, long and sleek with smooth curves. They moved through space like living things, silent and deadly. Lights ran along their hulls in patterns that looked almost like breathing. The human ships looked clumsy next to them. Thick metal hulls covered with armor plates, big engines that shot out bright flames, weapons that were just metal tubes for shooting solid projectiles. Everything about them screamed that they were built by people who had to fight for every piece of technology they had. The Vorthak commander sent a message to all the human ships. His voice was cold and full of contempt. Primitive humans, move away from this system. We have work to do here and you are in our way. Your little ships are not worth the energy it would take to destroy them. Jinho looked at his crew. They were all young, most of them barely out of training. They knew they were going to die, but none of them suggested running away. Tell him we decline his generous offer, Jinho said. The Vorthak ships moved into attack formation. Their weapon systems began to charge up, creating a glow that could be seen even through space. The human ships spread out as much as they could, trying to make themselves harder targets. The first, energy beams, came like lightning made of pure death. They moved so fast that Jinho barely saw them before they hit. The UES Courage, one of his escort ships, took a direct hit. Its shields flashed once and died. The second beam cut the ship in half. Return fire, Jinho shouted. The human ships shot back with everything they had. Kinetic cannons fired metal slugs at incredible speed. Missile launchers sent streams of explosive warheads toward the enemy. For a few seconds, space was full of human weapons, racing toward the Vorthak fleet. The alien shields absorbed everything. The metal slugs hit the energy barriers and bounced off like raindrops hitting a window. The missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible walls of force. More energy beams lashed out from the Vorthak ships. Another human vessel died, then another. The mining station behind them was sending out desperate calls for help, but there was no help coming. The rest of the human fleet was fighting similar battles across the galaxy and losing all of them. "Sir," Mino called out, "we have a secure communication coming in, very high priority." Jinho activated the special channel that only fleet commanders knew about. "This is Fleet Command Authentication 77 Alpha. Project status request." The reply came from someone whose voice he had never heard before, but he knew this person had authority that went higher than any military rank. 18 months, Commander," the voice said. "We need you to hold the line for 18 more months." Jinho looked at his tactical display. 3 of his 8 ships were already gone. The Vorthak were barely trying, treating this like target practice. 18 months, he repeated. "Affirmative. Project Achilles will be ready in 18 months. Until then, every day you buy us is a day closer to evening the odds." The communication ended. Jinho stared at the display for a moment, then smiled grimly. "All ships," he broadcast. "Change of plans. We are not here to win this fight. We are here to make it last as long as possible." Admiral Lee Suna stood at the front window of her command ship and watched the biggest alien fleet she had ever seen appear above Earth. 200 Vorthak warships came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with deadly beauty as they spread out to surround humanity's homeworld. The alien commander's voice reached every radio and communication device in the solar system. His words were full of cruel confidence. "Pathetic humans, your foolish fighting ends today. We give you the honor of watching how real warriors destroy their enemies. Your planet will burn, and the galaxy will forget you ever existed." Suna's own fleet looked tiny in comparison. 37 human ships arranged themselves between Earth and the approaching death. She knew the numbers. She knew what those alien ships could do. Every human commander had seen the reports from the colonies. Entire worlds turned to ash in minutes. "Admiral," said Captain Yoon Daeho from his station nearby. "Enemy fleet is moving into bombing position. They are pointing their weapons at our cities." Through the bridge windows, Suna could see Earth's orbital defense platforms. Dozens of weapon stations that had been built over many years. They looked strong and dangerous, but she knew they were nothing compared to what the Vorthak had brought. The first alien attack came like falling stars. Beams of pure energy reached down from space and touched Earth's defenses. The orbital platforms exploded one by one, each death marked by a brilliant flash of light. The planet's electromagnetic shields tried to absorb the attack, but there was too much power. The shields overloaded and failed. More energy beams reached toward Earth itself. They struck military bases and spaceports, turning them into craters of melted metal and glass. The aliens were not trying to capture anything. They wanted to destroy everything human. Suna walked to her command chair and pressed a button that activated a communication channel no one else knew existed. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Admiral Lee to Project Achilles. Authorization Omega 77. The time has come, I repeat, the time has come." The message traveled through space faster than light, using technology that officially did not exist. It reached a place far beyond the edge of the solar system, where no human was supposed to be. On a hidden base near the dwarf planet Eris, Dr. Kang Hyunwoo received the message he had been waiting 25 years to hear. Around him, hundreds of scientists and engineers stopped what they were doing and looked at him. These were people who had spent their entire careers working on humanity's greatest secret. "All stations, report status," Hyunwoo said into his communication device. "Power systems ready," came the first response. "Navigation ready. Weapon systems ready. Life support ready. Dimensional stabilizers ready." One by one, every system reported that it was working perfectly. Hyunwoo walked to the main observation window and looked out at the thing they had built. It hung in space like a dark mountain, 5 kilometers long and covered with technologies that did not appear in any textbook. "Sir," said his chief engineer, a woman named Dr. Kim Soyeon who had not seen her family in 10 years because of this project. "All systems are showing green. We are ready for emergence." Hyun-woo thought about all the people who had died to give them time to finish this work. All the colonies that had been destroyed. All the human ships that had been lost fighting impossible battles just to delay the enemy for a few more days. "Begin emergence protocol," he said quietly. "And may God forgive us for what we are about to do." Back in Earth orbit, Admiral Suna watched more of her ships die. The UES Resilience shook as enemy fire hit its shields. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge. Her crew worked frantically to keep the ship fighting, but everyone knew they were only delaying the inevitable. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we are getting reports from around the planet. The Vorthak are targeting population centers now. They hit New York, they hit Tokyo. Millions of people are—" The officer could not finish the sentence. Suna closed her eyes and tried not to think about all the people who were dying while she watched. The Vorthak commander sent another message, and this time he sounded almost bored. "Human fleet, you have fought bravely for insects. But this is over. Move aside and let us finish our work. Your deaths will not change anything." Suna was about to reply when her sensor officer made a sound of confusion. "Admiral, I'm getting some very strange readings from the outer system. Something big is moving near Jupiter, but I cannot tell what it is." On the main display screen, a new signal appeared. It was moving fast toward Earth, but it was unlike anything in their computer databases. The energy readings were enormous, bigger than anything they had ever detected. "What is that?" asked Captain Yoon. Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to bend near Jupiter. Reality twisted like someone was folding a piece of paper, and then something emerged that changed everything. The thing that came out from behind Jupiter was not like any ship anyone had ever seen. It was huge and dark and beautiful in a way that made it hard to look at directly. It moved without any visible engines, and space seemed to ripple around it like water. The Vorthak fleet immediately turned their sensors toward the newcomer. Their computers tried to analyze what they were seeing, but the readings made no sense. Energy signatures that were off their measurement scales, mass readings that changed from moment to moment, technology that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Admiral Suna smiled for the first time in months. After 25 years of hiding, humanity was finally ready to show the galaxy what they had really been building. Fleet Commander Vextar was enjoying watching the human planet burn when his sensor operator started making worried sounds. The young Vorthak's scales were flashing colors that meant confusion and fear. "Sir, I am detecting something very strange, coming from the gas giant. There is a massive object moving through hyperspace, but the readings do not make sense." Vextar looked up from the tactical display showing Earth's dying orbital defenses. "Another human fleet? How wonderfully pointless. Their little ships will burn just like the rest." But when he looked at his own sensors, the readings were impossible. The approaching object registered as a single ship, but its energy output was higher than his entire fleet combined. His most advanced computers could not identify the propulsion system because it did not match anything in the galactic database. "Sir," his science officer said, and her voice was shaking, "that vessel's power signature is reading as equivalent to a small star. The mass readings keep changing. Our sensors say it is both there and not there at the same time." Then they saw it with their own eyes. The UES Prometheus emerged from behind Jupiter like something from a nightmare. It was 5 kilometers of impossible architecture that seemed to bend light around its edges. The hull was not just metal, it was something that existed in multiple dimensions at once, phasing in and out of normal space like it could not decide which reality it wanted to be in. "What in the name of the void is that thing?" Vexitar breathed. His weapons officer tried to get a targeting lock on the human ship, but the computers kept giving error messages. "Sir, I cannot establish a target lock. The ship exists in several dimensional phases simultaneously. Our weapons cannot track something that is not entirely in our reality." The human ship did not move through space the way normal ships did. Instead of pushing against space, It seemed to command space to move. Around it, reality rippled in its wake as forces that should not exist bent the universe to the ship's will. Then Admiral Lee's voice came through every communication channel at once. This should have been impossible. Quantum entanglement communication took enormous amounts of energy and could only reach one target at a time. But somehow, her voice reached every ship in the Vorthak fleet simultaneously. Attention, Vorthak fleet. You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from this system or face consequences that are beyond your ability to understand. For the first time in his long military career, Vextar felt something he had never associated with humans. Fear. Real cold fear that made his scales stand up and his hearts beat faster. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with growing panic, "I cannot analyze their weapon systems. The energy patterns do not match anything in our databases. It is like they are using forces that we have never discovered." Vextar looked at the human ship again. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like looking at a storm that could destroy worlds. The hull seemed to shift and change as he watched, as if it existed in multiple realities and he was only seeing small pieces of it. "All ships prepare for combat," he ordered, but his voice did not sound as confident as usual. "It is still just one ship against 200. The humans are trying to scare us with tricks." His fleet began to charge their weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains started to glow with deadly energy. Missile systems loaded with warheads that could crack continents prepared to fire. The Vorthak had enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. The countdown reached 0. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the human ship is responding to our weapons lock. They are laughing at us." Admiral Lee's voice came through the speakers again, and this time there was amusement in her tone. "Commander Vexitar, you have chosen poorly. Let me show you what humanity has been building while you were destroying our colonies." The Prometheus did not fire weapons in any way that made sense. Instead, it began to demonstrate control over forces that the Vorthak had thought were only theoretical. Gravitational fields focused starlight from the distant sun into surgical beams that could cut through anything. But these beams did not just destroy the Vorthak ships. They did something much worse. The targeted vessels began to phase out of normal space, trapped between dimensions where they could not move or communicate or die. "Sir," his sensor officer screamed, "Squad 7 just disappeared. They are still sending signals, but they are not in our space anymore." Temporal displacement fields surrounded other Vorthak ships, trapping them in loops of time where the same moment repeated forever. The crews inside experienced the same second of confusion over and over, unable to escape or understand what was happening to them. "Squad 12 is caught in some kind of time distortion," another officer reported. "They keep sending the same message every few seconds. They do not know they are repeating themselves." Vextar watched in horror as his mighty fleet, the pride of the Vorthak Empire, was systematically taken apart by technology that made no sense. Ships were not exploding or being destroyed. They were being removed from reality itself. "All ships," he shouted into his communicator. "Retreat! Full retreat! Get us out of this system now!" But the human ship was not finished demonstrating what it could do. Admiral Lee's image appeared on screens throughout the Vorthak fleet, and somehow her transmission was reaching other places too. Every major world in the galaxy was receiving her message at the exact same moment. "Beings of the galaxy," she said, and her voice carried the quiet authority of someone who held absolute power. "You have spent months watching as the Vorthak destroyed our colonies. You did nothing because you believed we were weak and primitive. You were wrong." Behind her, holographic displays showed dozens of other human ships that had been hidden throughout the solar system. Each one looked even more impossible than the Prometheus. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple places at once, vessels that were surrounded by swirling clouds of controlled space-time. Technology that treated the speed of light as a suggestion rather than a law. For 25 years, we have been developing technology that operates beyond your current understanding of how the universe works. We showed you only our most basic ships because we wanted to see what kind of people you really were. Now you know what we are truly capable of." Vextar's remaining ships limped away from Earth as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Behind them, the human planet continued to orbit its star, protected by forces that could reshape reality itself. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Prometheus did not fight like any ship the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of shooting lasers or missiles, it used forces that the aliens thought were just stories from old science books. Commander, Vextar watched from his command bridge as impossible things began to happen. The human ship pointed at one of his cruiser squadrons and space itself bent around them. The 5 Vorthak ships did not explode or catch fire. Instead, they simply stopped existing in normal reality. "Sir," his communications officer called, out in panic. "Squad 9 is gone, but they are still talking to us. They say they can see us, but we cannot see them. They are trapped somewhere else." The Prometheus turned toward another group of Vorthak ships. This time it created fields of twisted time around them. The alien vessels began to move slower and slower until they were barely moving at all. Inside those ships, the crews experienced the same moment over and over again, never realizing that time had stopped for them. "Squad 15 keeps sending the same report every few seconds," another officer reported. "They do not know they are repeating themselves. Sir, what kind of weapons are these?" Vextar had no answer. In all his years of military service, he had never seen technology that could remove ships from reality or trap them in frozen time. The human ship was not just more advanced than his fleet. It was using science that his people had never even imagined. More Vorthak ships tried to attack the Prometheus, but their weapons could not hit a target that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Their energy beams passed through empty space where the human ship appeared to be. Their missiles exploded harmlessly against nothing. "All ships, retreat!" Vextar finally shouted. "Full retreat. We cannot fight something like this." But Admiral Lee was not finished showing the galaxy what humanity could do. As the surviving Vorthak ships tried to escape, her voice reached every major world in the galaxy at the same time. The Galactic Council chambers, the crystal cities of the Zalathi, the biomechanical hives of the Chronari. Every species received her message in the same instant. "Leaders and peoples of the galaxy," she said, and her voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute power. "You have watched for months as the Vorthak Empire destroyed our colonies. You did nothing because you believed humans were weak and primitive. You made a mistake." On screens across the galaxy, holographic displays showed the human fleet that had been hidden in Earth's solar system. Dozens of ships that made even the Prometheus look simple. Some of the vessels seemed to exist in several places at once. Others were surrounded by clouds of controlled space and time. A few looked like they were made of pure energy, held together by will alone. For 25 years, while you laughed at our basic ships, we were building technology that your scientists said was impossible. We showed you only what we wanted you to see. We needed to learn what kind of people you really were. The Zalathi, who had mocked human chemical engines, now stared at ships that moved by commanding the universe itself to rearrange around them. The Chronari, who had called human armor pathetic, saw vessels that existed partially outside of normal reality where no weapon could touch them. "We did not want to fight," Admiral Lee continued. "We came to you in peace, asking only for a chance to join your community. You responded with cruelty and violence. Now you will learn why that was unwise." 6 months later, Ambassador Kim Hana stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time, everything was different. The same aliens who had laughed at her now sat in respectful silence. The floating chairs that had once looked down on her from great heights were now arranged in a circle, with the human representative's position at the center. The crystalline Zalathi, who had mocked human technology, now sent their greatest scientists to Earth, begging to learn even the most basic principles of dimensional manipulation. The biomechanical Chronari offered vast amounts of tribute in exchange for any insights into how humans had learned to control time itself. "Honored Ambassador," said the Vorthak representative, a much smaller and more humble Vorthak than Commander Vextar had been. "My people wish to formally apologize for our actions against humanity. We offer full reparations for the colonies we destroyed, and we request only that you allow our survivors to return home safely." Hana looked around the chamber at beings who had once treated her like a primitive child. Now they waited anxiously for her response, knowing that humanity held power beyond their understanding. "The human government accepts your apology," she said formally. "Reparations will be paid over the next 50 years. In addition, the Vorthak Empire will provide raw materials for the reconstruction of our destroyed worlds." The Vorthak representative bowed his head gratefully. Around the chamber, other alien delegates took notes, knowing that they would need to make similar arrangements with humanity soon. Furthermore, Hana continued, the Galactic Council will be restructured. Humanity will take a permanent seat on the ruling council, with authority equal to the 3 founding species. There were no objections. No one dared to argue with the representatives of a species that could remove entire fleets from existence. As the session ended, and the alien diplomats hurried to carry out humanity's demands, Hana allowed herself a small smile. Through the great windows of the council chamber, she could see human ships patrolling the space around the station. Not the crude, boxy vessels she had arrived in months ago, but sleek craft that bent light around their hulls and moved like living thoughts through space. Far beyond the edge of the solar system, construction continued on vessels that would make even these ships look primitive. Humanity had learned the value of patience and preparation. They had also learned that sometimes the best way to achieve peace was to demonstrate the terrible cost of war. The galaxy had scoffed at human vessels, never realizing they were seeing only what humanity chose to reveal. Now they knew better, and they would never make that mistake again.